beat, boy.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Gin College Podcast. I'm your host, as always, John J. II, here with Cody Almasi and special guest Jack Williams, analytic guy for Michigan State Sports, Texas A&M Sports, and a representative of Untitled.com. Jack, how are we doing today, man?
I am having the best day of my life. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Doing great. Cody, how are we doing, man?
Doing good. Just happy to be here with you guys. A little outnumbered. One Wolverine to two Spartans here tonight, so feeling a little anxious in that regard.
Hey, that's all right. We're here to have some fun. It's always a treat having Jack Williams on the podcast. Had him on probably I want to say 6 months ago, something like that. Does that sound right, Jack?
Yeah, it's been a while. I feel like I remember like just doing it, but yeah, it's been like 6 months.
I know. It seems like yesterday, but a lot of time has transpired and a lot of different things have happened since then. So it's a great thing to have you on the podcast here tonight with us. And we're excited to get into the show and get into the topics. So the first thing we're going to talk about today with everybody is the bowl games. Obviously, it's been a topic of discussion coming at us late in December here. We're still looking forward to it. There's a lot of betting odds and betting stuff that can be talked about when it comes to the bowl games coming up. I guess I'll ask both of you guys, and we'll start with Cody. How are we feeling about the bowl games coming up, especially the top ones? How are we feeling going into bowl week?
You know, I'm just excited that bowl season will finally be here by Friday noon. We'll have, I think it's the Bahama Bowls kicking off. And yeah, just a real treat. Some teams you never really get the chance to watch, you'll be seeing. And then as far as the New York Six Bowls are concerned, super excited. You know, Ohio State, Utah, and the Rose Bowl is going to be a great one. I think one we're all excited for is the Peach Bowl between Michigan State and Pittsburgh, even though we don't know if Kenny Pickett's playing. And then just about an hour and a half ago, the AP Press, the Associated Press came out with an article saying that Mel Tucker was not sure if Kenneth Walker is going to be playing. He's battling an ankle injury that he's been dealing with all season. So if you're missing those two guys, it kind of loses a little bit of its luster, especially if you're not a fan of either one of those teams.
Yeah, you could possibly be missing not one Kenny, but two. So a little bit of a interesting aspect to think about. Jack, how are we feeling about bowl week, especially Michigan State being in the Peach Bowl going against Pitt? Both two strong teams. Pat Narduzzi, I believe, is still at Pitt, so that's going to be a little bit of a treat for some of the coaches that are still at Michigan State to see Pat Narduzzi again. How are we feeling about the Peach Bowl?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because on the Narduzzi thing, I feel like his impact on MSU's defense was still kind of hanging around until like the last 2 years. It's just, the defense is obviously not what it used to be. Right. So it's a shame that you don't get kind of like the ghost of Narduzzi's defense versus an actual Narduzzi defense. But I think it'll be a good game. It would really suck if both Kennys were out, but
right,
it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is, and you mentioned the ghost of Narduzzi, and there really hasn't been a defense at Michigan State like Narduzzi had his defense when he was at Michigan State. So it's kind of been unfortunate. No one's really been able to fill his shoes, and that's been a big detriment for the Spartans this year, and probably a reason why they lost a couple games, namely the Purdue game. So, there's a lot of things to consider with that, and I'm excited for this game. I think it's a great matchup. I think it's a good, two teams colliding. Both had very strong seasons. Obviously, I think the Spartans left a little bit on the table when it comes to their season. They had a hell of a season when you look back at it, look at the numbers. They did a great job. But we're striving for greatness. We're trying to be in that top four, and we were for a short stint there. And I think that was part of the detriment why they left the top four, because they were gassed up. And Cody and I talked about this in weeks past, how when you put Michigan State, whether it's basketball or football, you put them at a high standard, you put them on a pedestal, that works to their disadvantage because they're going to think of them as a high standing team, and they're going to, let that go to their head and they'll be like, oh, we're on top now. We don't, the job's basically finished. And that's not the right mentality to have. And I think that worked against them. So we'll have to see how that transpires. But yeah, Utah and Ohio State, that's going to be a hell of a game. I'm really looking forward to that one. That's going to really be a battle of the offenses, especially, and the defenses of both of those teams are very strong as well. So that is going to be a true battle, and I'm really excited to see it.
I got Ohio State by like 30 points in that game.
Really?
30 points.
I've never in my life believed in Utah. They could be undefeated right now, and I'm taking Ohio State by at least 3 scores.
Really? Well, so how do you think about that matchup with them against Oregon, them, beating them considerably in both games? Do you think that has any, or that holds any stock going into Ohio State, or no?
I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things. Oregon was such a weird team this year because they obviously they beat Ohio State and they looked amazing, but then there were times. I mean, I kind of compare them to MSU. Like, they're not a team. That's the difference between MSU and Michigan this year, right? Michigan was kind of the same team all year long. MSU, like the Purdue game, just felt like it was waiting to happen, even though MSU kept winning. Like, there was a close loss at Nebraska. That's how I feel about Oregon this year. And I guess this is like the most complicated, long strain of thinking here, but I just feel like, I don't know, Utah beat them twice. I think it's just a situation where they match up well against Oregon. I don't know. It's mostly just a gut feeling. I think Ohio State's going to absolutely embarrass Utah.
I think Oregon kind of caught Ohio State sleeping early on. That wasn't that Ohio State that finished the year. And after that loss to, who was it? Stanford, Oregon, they suffered. Yeah, the terrible Pac-12 team. Some of their players kind of lost hope and they weren't bought in anymore. And it was evident in those Utah games, especially the second one where they said they were going to come out with all kinds of swagger and revenge, and then just totally fell flat once again. So I think Oregon was a pretender all year long.
Yeah, it really hints towards these teams that are hit or miss teams. You really can't count on them week after week. You'd like to count on them to stay consistent, like Michigan has played. And losing to Michigan State, that was a tough loss for them. It was a hell of a win for us. But you got to look at the consistency, on both sides of the ball. They showed that consistency, and State just happened to pull away with that game that really could have went either way, especially looking at the calls against Michigan. And we're not going to get into that right now, but you look at the consistency between the teams, what you can count on, what you can't count on, where the kryptonite is. And it was really hit or miss, definitely for Oregon and definitely for Michigan State. So I can see that comparison very well. And that was definitely a detriment for both Oregon and Michigan State this year. And it hindered them in winning those 50-50 games. I would say State did get lucky against Nebraska. And that was a close game that could have went either way as well. So things to consider. There's a lot of work to be done in East Lansing.
Before we move on to some coaching stuff, just curious who you got in the semi-final games of the college football playoff, Jack.
You see, it's tough because I was preaching for so long. If Michigan matches up with Georgia, they're going to get railed. But Alabama really made Georgia look weak, and I think I still think Georgia gets the win there, but I don't know. I think that'll be a much better game than we expected. It's obviously Georgia's not like the unbeatable team that we had before. And then obviously I'm taking Bama in the other game. I don't know. I never bet against Nick Saban, especially at the end of the year.
That is so true.
I think that those are some smart takes there. I think Georgia has a better shot if they try to give JT Daniels another shot instead of Stetson Bennett. Maybe give Daniels a look. I don't know if they'll start him or if Stetson Bennett struggles, they might give him a look. He could have done it in the Alabama game. Pull a Nick Saban on Nick Saban, right. But he elected not to. And yeah, they got exposed a little bit. I share that view with you.
How do you guys feel about this comparison? So Caleb Williams and give me the other quarterback. He's almost irrelevant at this point. What's his name?
Rattler.
Oklahoma.
Oh, Spencer Rattler.
Spencer Rattler, Caleb Williams duo at quarterback. and then you got Stetson Bennett and JT Daniels. Is there a similarity there when it comes to the quarterback dynamic for each of these teams, or would you say that there's a more of an anomaly in one case than the other?
I mean, I think for Oklahoma, it's like who's got the hot hand, and for Georgia, it's like who's gonna let our defense carry the load more easily. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like who's screwing up on Georgia that's determining the other guy's going to start. Oklahoma, it's like who's going crazy, that's who's going to start.
Yeah, I can see that. What about you, Cody? How do you think about that?
Yeah, that's an interesting comparison to make. And I think it might even look more similar if Georgia's defense wasn't so great all year long and just let Stetson Bennett sit there and manage the offense. He didn't really have to work too hard to sit there and keep the starting job when JT Daniels, it was a lower leg injury or something like that, but he just never really got it back. So definitely an interesting comparison to make.
Yeah, the reason I bring that up is because we're seeing more and more in the college football landscape, seeing a 2-quarterback offense than a 1. I mean, you look at Michigan, J.J. McCarthy, going alongside. Jeez, I'm blanking on all these quarterbacks.
Cade McNamara.
Cade McNamara. Jeez, I'm going crazy. My mind's going a mile a minute, boys. So yeah, you see
so excited to have Jack here.
Oh man, it's crazy. I think I'm nervous. But having the 2-quarterback system is such a reality. It's becoming more a reality, especially for Power 5 teams. To see that happen and see it operate successfully. I think there's a lot of there's some roughness around the edges, I think, in a lot of these offenses. And that's why they haven't singled down to one quarterback over the other. So you see that dual quarterback system, and it seems to work for a lot of these teams, but it's just an interesting dynamic that is coming to the forefront. And
we can use this to kind of segue into some coaching changes, but you think that Dan Lanning, he was Georgia's defensive coordinator. He's now got hired at Oregon. The contract has not been released, but he is the head coach now in Eugene. Will that have any effect on how the Bulldogs play against the Wolverines?
You want to take that one, Jack, and I'll go after you?
I don't know. I don't know. I think you take out an offensive coordinator and a play caller and you got issues. Generally speaking, I don't know. I'd have to actually go look and see how teams have done.
But like you said, the ghost of Narduzzi, kind of like his mantra and his defensive mindset is still ingrained into those defensive players.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's a good example with Michigan State. Is like the defense was really good through 2018, 2019, but it was like a ghost of Narduzzi. And I think Georgia, it's tough too because they got absolutely smoked defensively against Bama. So you never know. Maybe something went wrong there. And if Michigan puts a lot of points up on them, the story's going to be, their defensive coordinator was gone, but maybe it just wasn't there to begin with. Maybe.
That's a good point. Yeah. Good perspective.
Yeah. Looking at Oregon though, hiring Dan Lanning as the defensive coordinator, or the past defensive coordinator. He is now the head coach, right? Am I correct in saying that? So moving from a defensive coordinator's perspective, that's definitely comparable to the Pat Narduzzi situation. Moving from a defensive coordinator position to a head coaching position, obviously you're going to have a defensive mindset. You're going to be able to count on your offensive coordinators a lot more since you have that defensive mindset, because most head coaches have the offensive mindset. They're worried about the offense. Having one that's more worried about the defense, more structured on the defense, I think sets up your defense very well. As long as you have the players to get it done on offense and you have the role players to get the job done, I think you're going to be fine. I think you almost have an edge on some teams that have weaker defenses because you're so ingrained to know defensive structure, different formations, things like that, where to attack the gaps on the run defense. So there's a lot of good aspects to having a defensive coordinator as the head coach. And I think it will really benefit Oregon to make them have a strong defense going forward, because they kind of lacked in that arena this year in some areas, especially the pass defense. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But
interested to see if he can get them back. It's not like Oregon has taken a huge drop off. I mean, still getting 9, 10, 11 wins a year, but just not being able to complete the process, get to the college football playoff since I think the first or second year. So be interesting to see how a first-time head coach handles it over there in Eugene.
Yeah, definitely. Especially, first-time head coach. How are they going to perform? How are they going to do? You got to give them a year almost, and you got to trust them for a year. You got to trust the process and how they're going to get acclimated to the rest of the coaches, to the personnel, and to the players. So there's going to be some learning curve to be anticipated for that move. But I think it's a good move. I think it's a bold move for those, those in charge of the coaching recruitment over there in Oregon and Eugene. So I'm hoping for the best for them. I'm not a big Oregon fan, but they've always been at the top. They've always made strong seasons of whatever they've had. Maybe not the best as of late, but they've been up there before. So they're looking to get there again, and they got to hold themselves to a certain standard if they want to be successful. So any more coaching carousel stuff or any recruiting stuff that others stands out to us? Probably not that much. It's starting to dwindle down.
Yeah.
Is there any more developments, Cody, that you know of when they're coming down to the deadlines? I know we talked about that on Friday. They're going to start making deadlines.
Signing periods back.
Yeah, the signing periods.
Any more developments on that? Former Buckeye, the Quinn Ewers, the NIL finesser who left Texas football. You can't make NIL in Texas while in high school. So he reclassifies to the 21 draft class, goes to Ohio State, sits on the bench. I think he had 2 snaps is what it was. And now he is transferring. He has chose the Texas Longhorns and Steve Sarkisian. And after a down year, they started out real hot. Bijan Robinson, they were having a great year and just fell short. I think they lost 7 or 8 games in a row. You think Quinn Ewers can do anything to turn it around? What do you think about this transfer portal going crazy? We have some other names in here like Bo Nix, Zach Calzada, and Kaden Slovis out of USC, all transferring. So lots of big names as far as quarterbacks are on the move.
Jack, you want to talk about Calzada?
Well, the Cuban Missile is honestly, like, this sounds super corny, but the dude was super inconsistent. But he, like, did you guys watch the A&M Bama game?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like that dude. I've never wanted a guy to win that badly. Like that dude showed so much heart. Like he on that go ahead touchdown pass, he like his knee gets bent at like a 90-degree angle backwards, and then he marches back onto the field the next drive. Like I don't know where. I think he's gonna land at like a smaller school, but I don't know. It was really sad to see him go. His dad connected with me on LinkedIn too. So
no way.
Fun little fact there.
Yeah, I didn't realize he had the A&M connection there. That's awesome.
Yeah, and so I was also I didn't really want Ewers to come to A&M necessarily, but I was just I don't know why he would go to Texas. Like he's obviously a bag chaser first and a football player second. Like someone I don't know. I got to find this comparison. Someone called him. Oh, it was Jack Cohen with a $1 million NIL deal or something like that.
Jack Cohen going from Wisconsin to Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I've seen some very suspect pictures of Quinn Ewers in the Buckeye uniform, man. I don't know if Buckeyes are happy or not to have him gone or what their feelings are on him. I guess we'd have to get a Buckeye in here to really get a good feel for it, but I don't know if any of us want to do that. So
that would be a treat. It'd be a treat just doing the homework to find a Buckeye to get on here because they know they're really in a battle zone if they do that. But yeah, looking at these moves, it just kind of really shines a light on the disadvantages to having NIL be a thing within the college football landscape or college sports in general. Seeing how much, because you're going to have those bag chasers like Quinn Ewers come to the forefront. You're going to see them come out. They're trying to get that money. They're trying to get big, but what they don't understand is they're young kids. And so they're not worried about the process of everything. They want that instant gratification. And that's a huge issue in today's world. So to see that become an issue and be a thing, it's an issue for, there's a lot of paperwork that's got to be done for both of these teams, both these programs. They don't know where he's going to land. They don't know where he's going. You got to make a decision at some point. Quinn, okay, figure it out. But the Bo Nix thing, I can see it happening. Obviously, he expected to do a lot better at Auburn than they did this year. They're usually a top-tier team. They were nowhere near that this year. So there's some moves that make sense, and there's obviously some good things when it comes to NIL as well. It's just who's going to utilize and take pride in those benefits compared to the detriments. And there's a lot of kinks to work out as far as the NCAA is concerned in putting restrictions in place for NIL contributions and certain money that's made from athletes. So there's some good, but there's also some bad. And I think once they iron out the kinks, it'll be a good system that they have in place. It's not going to go anywhere from now on, especially in the world of social media. in the world of building your own self, your own persona, your name, image, and likeness, which NIL stands for those of you out there that don't know. That's going to be a big factor going forward within college sports everywhere, in all divisions, really. So we'll be focused on that. That'll be a big content piece for us to talk about as analysts, as contributors going forward into the future. So other things to consider. Let's move on to the Heisman, though. So Bryce Young wins the Heisman, something we kind of expected. Is there anything significant that happened at the Heisman ceremony that we need to talk about?
Besides just the foregone conclusion of Bryce Young winning, I think everybody knew it going into it, who was taking it home, and kind of like a little more mystery in my life, a little more up in the airness. But
I do too.
Yeah. Michigan Wolverines, I don't know if it was scripted, if they planned it beforehand, but Desmond Howard and Aiden Hutchinson poking some fun at CJ Stroud and the Buckeyes. It's a little cringy, but love seeing CJ Stroud pissed off back there. I was also curious what you guys thought about him. CJ Stroud claiming his Heisman moment was a called back play against Michigan.
I'll let Jack take that one.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of anti like Heisman moment. Like there have been Heisman moments in the past, and now it's like any dude in the Heisman race does something good, and it's like Heisman moment.
Yeah.
Like just I don't know. I don't like when people take something and just beat the hell out of it. Like, yeah, that was obviously not a very smart thing for him to say.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah,
you got to look at CJ Stroud. You look at the season. You look at the games they lost. There's certain high points of a lot of the games they won. Even some high points in the games they lost. But to consider Heisman moments and things of that nature, you got to look at the games you won when it mattered. And that's where it really happens, and where these voters come out and decide certain things, which games were bigger to win in bigger situations than others. And obviously record and placement in the college football playoff obviously has a lot to do with that as well. We might see that change once we see a 12-team format, if we ever do. Some people are talking about an 8-team format. They put out a mock bracket of the 12-team format. I liked it. It looked good. It brings teams, 1 through 12 all into the conversation. It gives the teams in the top 4 a first round bye. So there's a lot of good aspects to that. So we'll have to see how that transpires as well. I'm waiting to hear more information on that. Maybe you guys have some inside information. Maybe Jack has some inside information at Fansided he can share with us, or maybe he can't share with us. But that's some stuff that I'm really excited to learn more about. So hopefully we get more information on the
I don't have any inside information, but I think I saw the same bracket that you did, and it had MSU up against Ohio State.
Yeah.
So I'm good on that, actually.
Yeah, I seen one where it had like Alabama and Georgia so far from one another, but it had Michigan, Ohio State, and Michigan State all just like ready to rematch. I'm like,
oh yeah,
completely.
I mean, who wouldn't want to see that? At least not maybe
ratings
not
would be through the roof. Yeah. But as far as Bryce Young concerned, he definitely stepped up towards the end of the season in the Iron Bowl, and then against Georgia. I think those 2 performances are really what sealed the deal for him. I really wish the War Eagle Auburn could have upset them that night, man. But just watching the game going down, I knew it wasn't going to happen. And Bryce Young, he opens up next year as the Heisman favorite already, and probably the most realistic odds to win it again since Lamar didn't do it, but he finished 3rd in 2017 after winning the trophy in 2016. But the only person to ever do it, obviously, everybody knows this stat, Archie Griffin from the Ohio State Buckeyes in 74 and 75. So, hey, anything could happen. But the Heisman preseason favorites this year, none of them are still. It's Sam Howell, Spencer Rattler, DJ Uyunglele, JT Daniels, and then Stroud and Young were in there. But the other 4 guys, nowhere to be found.
I think De'Aaron King is in a lot of the.
Oh, yeah. Yep, Miami. He didn't even finish the season as their quarterback, did he?
No, I did. I did a fantasy football, college football league, and I took him as my quarterback. I was all in.
Oh, man. De'Aaron King.
So well.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Fantasy college football.
That.
I didn't even know they did that. What app do you use for that?
To be honest, I did about 3 weeks in, my whole team was injured and just done, and I thought I'm gonna let my $20 go, and
I'm gonna delete
Right.
that.
couldn't even
Right.
tell you. Yeah, I seriously, I don't even have that app anymore.
Yeah, that's what happened to me
great.
in NFL fantasy. So I gave up about around week 8. We won't get into that though. Let's talk about Army and Navy. Navy obviously pulls the upset against Army. Huge upset. That's where you bring into, and we talked about this on Friday as well, how in a big rivalry matchup, you really got to throw records. You got to throw team state out of the conversation, because, you know, especially in a military type game where both branches are coming out in full force to show out for their respected teams. There's going to be a lot more to play for than just the record. So what did Navy have to do in this game, Cody, to make them win this game?
You know, this game was kind of sandwiched in between Michigan State playing Penn State and Michigan playing Minnesota on Saturday, and I was bartending. So I was kind of multitasking watching. I was really watching the over-under. Everybody, this game, it hit the under for the 16th year in a row. Pretty crazy stat. So close to hitting. Yeah, the box score, if you look at it, they had no 100-yard passer, rushers, or receivers. So kind of just speaks to the style of play. Not really any interceptions or turnovers either, just some ground and pound out, get to 20 points first kind of deal. And Navy won by getting 17. A better for Caesar Sportsbook had 135K on the under and 150K on under 16 in the second half. And both those with one score, they both hit. So dude is probably sweating the whole time. And it's the most bet on game of the season, regular season game. So I don't know if conference championships are figured into that, but the only game that was bet on more was Michigan, Ohio State. So pretty cool.
That's
pretty
an
cool
interesting statistic to mention there. Wow. I had no idea about that.
And it also had more money riding on it than any NBA game, any college basketball game, or UFC card that night. So people were watching this Army Navy game, man.
People were watching. They weren't seeing a whole lot of action, but they were watching, and they were betting. If you bet the under, you won it. So good to those that bet the under on that one. But yeah, big win for Navy, big statement win. So we'll have to see where they wind up next year. You don't really hear about Army or Navy too much in the regular season, except for this game, this season ending game. We'll have to see.
Or they give a good team who's ranked like a tough time, like Army did with Wake Forest this year, or a couple of years back. I think 2018, they took my Wolverines to 2 overtimes, and I know all the Wolverines had tight buttholes for that game.
Oh boy. Oh boy. All right, let's move on to some basketball. Let's move on to some college basketball. So we're going to talk about some of our own respected teams here a little bit. Obviously, Jack and I are big Michigan State fans. Cody's a Michigan fan. We'll just kind of talk about the state of the Big Ten when it comes to college basketball. We're easing our way into conference play now, so it's getting really exciting for college basketball fans. Let's talk about Michigan State, though, first, guys. Let's talk about what are the biggest things plaguing this Michigan State basketball team. They're coming close at the end of games. They're not really finishing games strongly towards the end of the game. They get up, they get good leads, but then they always make it interesting, especially namely this game against Minnesota. So, Jack, maybe you can shed some light on this. What do the Spartans have to do going forward to really make them a high-class team?
Yeah, I think as soon as Max Christie starts shooting well, MSU is going to be the best team in the Big Ten by a mile, because that dude is like he's missing his shots, but he's doing everything else right. He's playing elite defense. And I think that's the issue with the team so far is there's nobody, there's no Cassius, there's no, that's what's killing them down the stretch, because usually those dudes will just start going crazy, give them a 20-point lead with 5 minutes left, and it's just done there. But I think they're just missing that. I know Gabe Brown is the leading scorer, but he's not, as much of a playmaker as we've seen in the past.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely struggling to find a leader. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be AJ Hogard? Some people don't really know if it's going to be him. He looks like he's trying to take things to the next level. Max Christie's trying to do it. Malik Hall's even getting in there. You got Marcus Bingham making some threes. I like seeing that. Tyson Walker is also trying to make a statement. So there's a lot of guys that are in contention for that leader position, but nobody that really took that or that's taken it so far to really be like, I'm the leader of this team. I'm going to put this team on my back when I have to. And that's going to be that, like a Cassius or like a Kalen Lucas or someone like that. We got to see that mentality, and that's what Tom Izzo usually gravitates towards, individuals like that. But we haven't really seen a whole lot of that in years past. These, like, at least recent history with this Michigan State team, we haven't seen a leader emerge since Cassius, I would say. So that between that and the turnovers, there's a lot of things that I think need to get ironed out before this team is really a great team. They have the tools. They have the tools to do it, and they have the tools. I think there's even individuals on this team that can really take this team, put it on their back, and really make themselves a leader of this team. But they're just going to have to figure that out, whether it's an individual that has to step up. Because I know in the locker room, there's got to be one guy that's stepping up and being like, I'm going to be the guy. I'm going to really control the conversation, the locker room conversation when I'm speaking to my team. Maybe even puts his arm around Izzo, probably, 4 or 5 feet taller than him. He's like down here with it. And he's just talking to the team. He's screaming at them, getting in their face. And, you got to have a guy like that to really rally around. So we'll see if that happens, but I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah,
Cody,
I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Cody.
Go ahead.
I think that, again, I said that I think Max Christie's like the best player on the team, but I've been getting that vibe from Tyson Walker lately. It just seems like he's been stepping up. Like he looks more like a true Izzo point guard as opposed to last year there was Lawyer and Watts, and neither of them. Lawyer, by the way, is going crazy at Davidson lately.
Yeah, I noticed that. I saw that on Twitter.
Yeah, neither of them have been. Neither of them last year stepped up ever, and it was like we were waiting for it. And this year, it looks like Walker and honestly Hogard too have been like really taking that alpha dog spot on the team.
Yeah, they have. I noticed that definitely with Tyson Walker. He's been doing it. He's a junior, and Hogard's a sophomore, so he probably, and Tyson Walker really reminds me of a Keith Appling kind of guy. Even like a Kalen Lucas, a shorter guy, really can rally his troops, a quick guy, good ball handler, can make threes when he has to. I just need to see that confidence out of Tyson Walker, because if I see that confidence out of him and I see it shine, I think he's going to really make an impact here on the Spartans team. But you really got to just take that, and you got to, every time you take the court, you got to be like, okay, without even knowing who Michigan State is, who the players are, this is the leader of the team. And I can look at this team play, whoever, and I can notice that right up front. Max Christie, I can see him doing that, and I can see him being that guy. But he's a freshman, so he's a young guy. He's still learning a lot, probably taking a lot in from his the upperclassmen that are on the team and other coaches that are trying to give him the direction. So it's not impossible for him to take the reins and really become the leader of this team, but it might be a little bit more difficult for him with upperclassmen on the team to really take that role and own it right now. But by no means is it impossible. So.
Yeah, I never got the chance to see Christie play. He has shown glimpses, though. And I look at my Michigan Wolverines, and Caleb Houston is a freshman, highly touted recruit. And I'd much rather have Christie this many games, 10 games through the season. Houston just looks lost, can't hit a bucket. He goes 0 for 7 to start a few of these games. And just nobody on the Wolverines there's completely no leadership. Hunter Dickinson, he's only a sophomore, and he's leading the team, I think, in 3-point percentage as the center. So that should speak to something. And they don't have anybody who can just come in and hit a bucket. And they're really missing people like Shondi Brown, Franz Wagner, Isaiah Livers, all now, I think. Mike Smith. Yeah, he's the point guard last year. Transfer Vontae Jones has not been able to replicate what Mike Smith was able to do. And Wolverines have already tied their regular season loss total of last year. And they're looking like they're going to be struggling this year. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, I'd much rather be in your guys' shoes. Start the season unranked, now be sitting at 12. We were 6, moved to 4, and have completely dropped off.
Yeah, it's definitely better for the Spartans to start out lower, even unranked, and then work their way up instead of starting like a 2 or 3, maybe winning a couple key games, get into that one spot. It's just going to work against them going forward.
You guys have only lost to Baylor, the 1 seed, and then Kansas, right? So 2 top 10 teams there.
Yeah, exactly. Got a comment here from Sobo. Christie will peak and get better at the right time. Look for a deeper run than expected. He said extremely deep, and you guys right. No leader, not sure we will see one. Definitely a possibility. Hopefully we do see one, though. This Michigan State team really excels with a leader, as does most teams. So if they find a leader, great. If they don't, I think they're going to struggle in key situations. Who's going to step it up and make the basketball in the hoop in those key moments to win the games in clutch moments? So we'll have to see what happens.
Do you know, we have you been watching Memphis at all?
I have a little bit, yeah. Rocket Watts, right?
No. Amani, we dodged
Amani Bates.
A very powerful bullet in Amani Bates.
Really? Is he crumbling?
Bad. They've lost, I think, well, I don't know. As of yesterday, they lost like 4 straight, I think, or something, and they were ranked in the top 10. And the dude is shooting like 38% or something, and he just like someone put Foster Lawyer's numbers next to Amani Bates this year. It's just funny, yeah.
Yeah, they've dropped 4 in a row. Most recently, Friday night to Murray State, and they face the 6th-ranked Crimson Tide tomorrow night. So it's not getting any easier for Penny Hardaway and Amani Bates.
I hate Penny Hardaway. I'm anti-Penny Hardaway.
Anti-Penny.
Without a doubt, he gave Amani Bates' dad $1 million and said, "Send your kid to." And then I have people arguing on Twitter that they have all this FedEx money, like dudes are these 18-year-old kids are dying to get a FedEx sponsorship.
Because it's like Memphis, and that's who the FedEx for them. Like that's.
I mean, I cover the Grizzlies, so I shouldn't talk too much shit about Memphis. But
this is not off the record, Jack. So be careful what you say. Good stuff. All right, guys. Well, that brings us towards the end of the podcast today. Had some great conversations here with some great individuals that know, they breathe, they eat, they sleep the college sport landscape. So it's really exciting to have a talk with you guys, and it's a great treat to have Jack with us. You guys have time for any final statements? Do you guys have anything you want to say before we sign off?
Yeah, I'll just let it be known. Watch out for the Baylor Bears. They're the 4th team in 4 weeks to be ranked number 1 in the AP poll, and they are on a nation best 15-game win streak that includes dominant runs and wins over Houston and UCLA to claim the title last year. Watch out for the Baylor Bears.
Watch out for Baylor. Got to keep a watchful eye out for them. Jack, you got anything final to say to the people before we sign off to them?
No final comments, but I'd love to see Baylor's record stretched back like 2 years, because I know they only lost how many games did they even lose last year?
I think 2. Yeah.
Yeah, that's think about that as a fan. You probably watch 50 games and watch your team lose 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fans.
I mean, you can't compare anything to UConn's women's basketball run, but they've actually took quite a slide after losing Paige Beckers, also known as Paige Buckets. So yeah, but just a comparable run as far as seeing just not a lot of losses in back-to-back seasons. So
I saw a women's basketball score today at I think it was at halftime. It was some insane. It was 99-9 at some point for a Division I women's basketball matchup. So
there's some big discrepancies out there in women's basketball.
Yeah.
Some big anomalies to be seen. Crazy stuff, man. A lot of stuff is getting heated up. So make sure to focus on bowl week coming up, and as well as college basketball starting up with conference play happening all over the place. Primarily talking about the Big Ten, though, really hard and focused on the Big Ten and what's going on week in and week out with these teams in conference play. So really good stuff. Make sure to give Jack Williams a follow on Twitter, as well as staying posted to all of our social media here at the Gin Sports Network via the link tree at the bottom of your screen. And we'll be in touch very soon. And hopefully we'll have Jack on here again, because I had a great time today. We had some good knowledge spread about. So good stuff, guys. Thanks again for joining us tonight on the Gin College Podcast, everybody. I'm your host, as always, John J. II, with Jack Williams and Cody Almasi. Have a great night.